The choices that he makes in his life lead him on a downward spiral that will eventually lead to his demise. The path that Samson chooses plunges him into a life of sin that hijacks him of his God-given potential. We begin our lesson today by reading Judges chapter 14, beginning verse 1. Samson went down to Timnah and saw there a young Philistine woman. When he returned, he said to his father and mother, I have seen a Philistine woman in Timnah. Now get her for me as my wife. His father and mother replied, Isn't there an acceptable woman among your relatives and among all your people? Must you go to the uncircumcised Philistines to get a wife? But Samson said to his father, Get her for me. This is Samson, man. She's right. She's the right one for me. His parents did not know that this was from the Lord, who was seeking an occasion to confront the Philistines, for at that time they were ruling over Israel. Samson went down to Timnah together with his father and mother. As they approached the vineyards of Timnah, suddenly a young lion came roaring toward him. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him in power, so that he tore the lion apart with his bare hands, as might tear a young goat. But he told neither his father nor his mother what he had done. Then he went down and talked with the woman, and he liked her. See, there are some things about Samson I don't think many people know. He is quite the character, if you will. And I have to be honest with you, I didn't really realize that as much either until I started studying into the life of Samson. Well, the first thing that we notice from this passage is Samson is going to the wrong place. To begin with, I want to draw your attention to the words in verse 1 where we see that Samson went down. In verse 5, we read Samson went down. Also in verse 7, we read he went down. Now, these three times in these verses say that Samson went down. Of course, these verses are referring to a geographical area south of where he was living. But the town of Timnah was located about 4 miles downstream from Zorah, where he was from, Samson's hometown. But these words also depicted and describe the beginnings of a spiral decline in Samson's life. What we see is him going down spiritually. Now, one thing that we need to say before we go on any further, we're not told how much time between chapter 1 and chapter 13 and chapter 14. All that says in the last part of chapter 13 is that the woman gave birth to a boy, and they named him Samson. He grew, and the Lord blessed him. That's it. Again, we don't know how much time took place between chapter 13 and chapter 14. But you know, he's old enough now that he's interested in women. Well, he's going down to Timnah, which I say is the wrong place to go. The town of Timnah, being located just 4 miles downstream from Samson's hometown, reminds me that it only takes a short distance to get out of the will of God. Can I get a witness on that? Yeah. Yep. In other words, it doesn't take much to be headed in the wrong direction and to go down the tube spiritually speaking. Doesn't take much at all. In Judges 13, we read that Samson, as a man, was born with great purpose. Or as a boy, when he was going to be had great purpose in mind. God started off. He had been born according to God's plan and with a divine purpose. In God's plan, he was born to be a judge and the deliverer of the children of Israel from the hands of the Philistines. From his mother's womb, Samson had been set apart to be a part of God's plan to deliver the Israelites out of the captivity that they were in. We also have seen in Judges 13 that Samson was a man of great promise. Samson would definitely have been voted most likely to succeed, as we said before. He had everything going for him. It was not everyday occurrence for parents to experience a personal visit from God